Welcome back. Uh, Going to be touching on a few topics, not just the communist socialism invasion. That's evident within the UK. I can't really speak on much other cities within the city, within this country. Yeah, my words jumbled. As I haven't left Bristol for a little while. For years. So from what I noticed, going through like town especially and like the city centre and some of the posh areas in Bristol, you got like Clifton, which is somewhat the rich area of Bristol. It's just a huge population of Chinese. And just really out of nowhere, I've noticed it more on the weekends, but also just a lot of people considering there was the whole vaccine for a flu that supposedly killed a lot of the population. You'd think that numbers would be down and that the roads would be quiet, but it's far from that, and especially considering the financial situation that the country is facing. And so yeah, I'm gonna look at some articles, and we'll probably look at the UK economy. So yeah, there's not really going to be much talk about America or really any other countries, unless you guys send something my way. And then maybe I'll do a video on it. But at the moment, I'm not really interested. So where are we? Okay, so there's one article here. I'll share it with you. Yeah, where? We've allowed an extreme form of socialism to ruin Britain, and it's called woke. So socialism, for any of you that don't know, the Wikipedia, Google translation, is a political or economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production and distribution and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole, so that the community and the people that make it up, like everybody's got to be in control of it and to be able to have it say, I guess. But yeah, it's just basically it's ruining this country. We had a statue taken down because people didn't like the person that it represented, and so they want to erase that part of history to have some like social justice against history, and yet they emphasize on like white slave traders, but then they won't talk about the the blood sacrifices and the slave trades that go on a yearly basis on in other countries still to this day. Uh, so yeah, it's just a lot of stupidity. I'm not really going to listen to what these people have to say. I was going to have a quick read of the article.
It would be a huge error to think Coop's cancellation of Nigel Farage was a one-off. It would be equally wrong to think the problem only infects banks. Prejudice through the institutionalization of woke has embedded itself in every part of our economy and lives. We are culturally and materially much the poorer for it. Coops took a dislike to Nigel and the system encouraged it to do so. Its actions had real-life consequences for him, as they have done for all the other account holders and businesses cancelled.
Yeah, they closed down his bank account because he was an advocate for Brexit, but whatever happened to Brexit,
It cancelled. Their sort of behavior is more impetuous, vindictive and immature than that of a playground bully. They nearly got away with it too, even after their scorn was published.
So yeah, and there's people that would go so because of their political views and so forth, they're then sending people to their houses to be abusive to them and doxing people's information, and yeah, it's just barbaric mob mentality of do as we say because we got the numbers and because we made the biggest noise.
Published. They would have been able to brazen it out but for Dame Alison Rose breaking her duty of confidentiality and briefing the BBC against Nigel. The real question here is how a bastion of British business, one of our renowned private banks, famous for its professionalism, could have been allowed to act like this. The answer: because the system is not there to police such behavior, it encourages it. Indeed, the regulations demand it. The regulatory culprit goes by the name of environmental, social and corporate governance, ESG. It is the policy mechanism by which governments across the developed world are requiring public bodies, institutions and businesses to drive towards net zero and eliminate what they call social injustice.
Social injustice, so they have to bring forth their social justice. It's just making a new word for intimidation and threats of violence. If you don't push for this net zero, which practically every person that deals with business just knows that it's impractical, and you might as well. And also that we breathe out carbon. So there's a net zero is just another way of saying depopulation. There's double talk, or it's unrealistic expectations for a future, and so we'll destroy it.
Injustice. ESG has now firmly taken its place alongside the traditional drivers of the economy, and in many cases trumped them, including the vitally important profit motive, the UK's ESG regime.
The vitally important profit motive, because that's all what all of this is driven by. It's there's a migrant crisis, yeah, but there's not a cheap labor crisis.
Consists of domestic and EU-derived laws and regulations. The sources of legislation are manifold. To name a few: Directors' Duties in the Companies Act 2006, The UK Corporate Governance Code 2018. The UK Stewardship Code 2020. Stock Exchange Listing Rules. The Disclosure Guidance and Transparency.
Right, sorry. You guys can read all of that.
All regulated entities, banks being but one, are required to adopt and report on ESG. Crucially, they
snitching. And then they probably got the technologies being brought to them by these companies to do the snitching, which is basically AI. Like,
are also required to ensure that those entities with which they trade similarly adopt such principles.
Again, just speculation, not like just reading articles and just trying to make sense of what I believe that I'm hearing, because a lot of it is confusing. So yeah, all of the work that the forefathers and the people that have like put all these laws and regulation, like not law regulations, but a lot of things, the principles that we thought were like that worked, it's just been like handed over to stupidity and just allowing it to go to ruin, from a lot of the confusion that they create. So a lot of you may have heard about the Hong Kong situation, where I guess China got fed up of democracy, or just any part of the British rule existing within China, and so those people had to like vacate. So you had a few people protesting, and the CCP were not happy with it, and so there's a lot of people got hurt and in trouble, but from the protests that happened for a short time, I guess from the invasion, it more or less looked from the outside. These people had to find somewhere to go. There's another article, Sky News. Hong Kongers warn of social conflict as new arrivals to UK struggle to find jobs, housing, and school places. That's just horrible. The UK has opened its doors to millions of Hong Kongers, but many are worried that new arrivals will stretch local resources and facilities, and that risks alienating local people. This was in December 2021, so this was 2 years ago. There you go. Hong Kongers, people from Hong Kong, are Britain's fastest growing community, but those supporting new arrivals have told Sky News of their concerns about the impact of large numbers arriving in short space of time, even warning of social conflict unless resources are properly managed. And in spite of millions who are eligible to come to the UK, some believe it should be extended. The UK opened its borders to 3 million Hong Kongers and their dependents, potentially 5 million people following China's democracy crackdown. So yeah, and they've been arriving in the UK or applying to come here on average at a rate of 2,500 a week since January. Richard Choi came to the UK from Hong Kong 13 years ago. He now lives in Sutton in Surrey, the kind of suburb which is proven popular with newly arrived Hong Kongers. Mr. Chow is now helping people settle in and says you can see with your own eyes how the democratic has changed just by walking down the high street. And this was the point that was the intro to this video. Like yeah, I haven't worked a great deal, so like there's only been like a few visits out that I've noticed. And yeah, it's just a lot of people in Bristol, not just saying like there's a lot of Chinese, which there is, but yeah, so there's a lot of people. He says a lot of local people feel the same. After the pandemic, they got back to the high street and they kind of feel, hey, it's different. Because there's a lot of new faces, especially Chinese, Hong Konger faces. But he is worried that new arrivals will stretch local resources and facilities that risk alienating the local population. Alienating, like we've been a society that's been welcoming of like of the Muslim, of the Jamaican, of the Albanian, of the Polish, and now we've got Chinese people here, and we're gonna like all the foreign people and the British people are going to be alienated by these. You're just disgusting. Like, get over yourselves. Like, if they're willing to adopt, how the British have not want to be this woke SJW society, and they want to be working members, then go for it. He says if we do not contribute the resources evenly, it means that the local people may be angry about maybe some of the resources being taken, and that will have social conflict, so civil wars. You're taking my job. For new arrivals coming here, it will be very easy to have social conflict or racism. Maybe people will see them as the enemy or competitors. Really? Like, what I have noticed, like, is just people walking around and just there isn't much conversation. It's like if there is conversation from like just briefly passing through like on my bike, or yeah, mostly on my bike. I'll say like ni hao and like wave. But I've not had anybody talk to me, but I've not really also kind of tried to approach them. But it just seems like to me like kind of normal Bristol, but with more Chinese faces than brown and white and yellow. But that's not to say that there's never been yellow Chinese people here. Like because we've had Chinese restaurants for for decades. I like my Chinese food. Maybe people see them as the enemy or competitors. They may feel like the immigrants took their jobs and feel angry towards them. In Sutton, walking down the high street with Mr. Chow, it doesn't take long before we bump into Wong family, who arrived 2 weeks ago. Honestly, these are sounding like made up names, but only because I've heard of somebody use Wong, but that wasn't actually their name. It was just fake. It was a fake name. Mr. Chow, hearing Cantonese voices, and goes over to introduce himself to Mom and to Dad, Brian and Joanne, and their 5-year-old daughter, Melissa. It's their first time in the UK, but they're not alone. Mr. Wong says some of our friends and relatives have also come to the UK, especially Sutton, and especially those with children, kids. Like I don't see any baby goats. Did you see any baby goats in that picture? And Melissa has a school place, but the Wongs say others they know have struggled to get their children into school. Places like Sutton are popular because they are still commutable to London, but far enough out for people to think they will get better schools and bigger homes. Finding accommodation is another key issue with some of those we spoke to, saying a lack of UK credit history means some landlords have asked for a year's rent in advance. One woman we met, who didn't want to give her real name, said she felt without the help of the church, she would have struggled to find somewhere to live. She told us the demand is very high and available flats or houses is pretty limited, so I started to recognize Sutton is not easy to find an available place to live. Sutton is not an easy to find an available place to live. Well, if you've got 2,500 people turn up like in this country a week, and they barely got houses for the people that are already here, like the waiting list for council housing is they don't even tell you to register because it's that long. But luckily, praise God, I found some Hong Kongers. People are helping, of course. You know, Peter. Food banks, churches. There's been a lot of support during these difficult times. The woman who we're calling paid up this pads. Oh, sorry.
The woman, who we are calling Anthea, pads up the stairs in her new home, past a bedroom door which is open. You can see her suitcases inside. In the lounge, there are boxes being unpacked. Anthea came with her son, but her husband has remained in Hong Kong to look after elderly parents.
Everyone reports a warm welcome, but Anthony echoes the concerns we are hearing. One worry is there are many Hong Kong people coming to the same place, then maybe the local people will worry that we have got their placement of work or placement of school or other kinds of resources. I spoke to one Chinese lady in church, and she said that she'd like recently moved. And I said, okay, like, oh, and I said, oh, did you come from Hong Kong? Because they had the communist state takeover. Well, I didn't say communist, but I just said, oh, are you from Hong Kong? And that was what came to mind. And she said, no, like I'm from the other side. And I said, oh, communist. And the white people, the elderly, like were they were, that were listening in on the conversation were not too pleased. I mentioned, communist, socialism, or yeah, just say communist, and from that reaction, I said, well, I don't think the British are much better. Like, yeah, I don't think me patriotic. But yeah, God will still use. You use things for his good. We met a number of new arrivals in Sutton. And she is not alone in wanting to hide her identity. What are you talking about? That makes no hide your identity. Like that's just like the stupidest thing I've heard. And start wearing white people's makeup. So telling people you're not from Hong Kong. I just don't understand. Like unless it's a lie. it common sense. Many of those who spoke. Many of those we spoke to said, in spite of having arrived safely in the UK, they're careful about what they say because of security concerns for relatives still in Hong Kong. Yeah. Again, this is just. Yeah, if they're still there, I mean, this is China we're talking about. China's got like death buses. There's a good chance there's probably nobody back there. Raymond, not his real name. So this guy also lives in Sutton and has come to the UK with his wife and young children. A collection of children's toys by the side of the sofa is an indication of the life they have left behind. Okay. It includes a small model of a traditional Hong Kong minibus. He told me, I have no regrets at all. We were living in such a tense atmosphere over the past few years. The day I arrived, I feel The day that I arrived, I feel relieved. Yeah, because you haven't got the Chinese Communist Party like like looming, like looking out, like trying to get to you. Like, let's see how long that let's see how long that lasts. Finally, we can plan our future. Man makes plans and God laughs. Finally, I don't have to worry about my kids' education, children's education. I mean, they have to go to. They have. I mean, they have to go. I don't mean they have to go to Oxford or Cambridge, kind of thing. Yeah, right. It means I don't need to worry whether he'll be brainwashed. You don't know much about England. He can be educated here in a more healthy environment. You know nothing of England. Sewage spills at like a record in its record highs, like the dirtiest water. Let's go take a dip down the river Thames. Um, let's go drink some of that water. Like dog owners are being warned not to like let their dogs out into the sea. But they had like past the rivers, like because the rivers obviously being used for that overflow. But yeah, like countless, and it's not even something that's been widely reported. So dogs and animals are getting sick from the overspillings, and we're even being charged congestion charges to try and clean up the air, and knowing like nothing about how that money's being used. So yeah, like brainwashing. Oof. These lying articles. It's no wonder I hardly even read these trusted news sources. It's not just homes and school places the new arrivals need to find, but also jobs. Yeah, it's the whole shit. It's the whole American British dream. Another stumbling block. Some Hong Kongers are finding their qualifications aren't recognised in the UK, so an estimated 40% are thinking about setting up their own businesses. Yeah, that's because they won't recognise it, so that they can put you into an apprenticeship rate, which is not anything to be able to live on. For a time, but if you can endure that, if you like, and then the money that you made for the company, they then be able to offer you a well-paid job, provided you're able to put that work in. Apparently, Eric came 9 months ago and had never been to the UK before. He left behind a successful business selling tea leaves, but brought with him his entrepreneurial spirit. Happy to reveal his identity and his dreams, he decided there is a market play in the UK to make and sell Hong Kong milk tea. Well, yeah, because we've got a lot of Hong Kongers here now, and they're going to be missing their milk teas. A traditional drink, which is a unique blend of leaves served very milky and sweet. So there you go. That's a little pitch for you there. He's now got a license to produce his secret blend in his kitchen. I just hope he's got a hygiene certificate. Mr. Wong isn't confident enough to speak to us in English. He's still learning, but understands that to truly integrate, that has to change. He says, I'm going with the flow, like water. I'm going with the flow. I will learn English and how to blend into the community. It will be mutually beneficial. Hong Kong people will bring investment and new ideas, and on the other hand, we are very thankful the local community has accepted us and given us a place to live in. But not everyone is optimistic about the future. I am. Come Lord Jesus. Enoch, not his real name, but they like the name Enoch, shares videos with us, microphone to his mouth, of him leading a demonstration outside the British consulate in 2019. Says when the opportunity to travel to the UK came up last year, he pretty much got on the plane within a few days. He arrived at a time of lockdown restrictions before the official BNO visa scheme was launched in January this year. I'm not sure what that is. The BNO visa scheme. Is that the open border where everybody comes on in? He says he couldn't. Oh, and doesn't get searched as they enter. He says he couldn't get a job, and by the time the visa scheme opened, he used up his 10,000 in savings trying to survive. With his money having run out, now he's now homeless, staying on people's floors and sofas, and relying on food banks and handouts. Like that's what I'm doing. And I'm sure most of the British people are doing the same. Well, went out the other night, the other evening, up onto the Downs, and there was maybe 30 caravans parked up on the Downs. Just kind of travel by them. There's caravans, there's vans, people just living up on there because there's no parking charges. I saw Martin. So I got to speak to Martin, hand him a little bit of food. And he said that he lost his girlfriend, he lost his home, he lost his job. And with what money that he had left, he bought a box. Like it's like a trailer box. It's not even a caravan. And it's just parked up on the Downs, and his door was like open ajar, so I could see his face and was like hello, like, and yeah, I said like I'm sorry this has happened to you. I'm sorry you've been through this, and like try not to look at the things that you've lost. That's just going to bring back more. That's just going to keep bringing up the pain, and just try and focus on what you do have. Look at today. And just be happy with the little things. And yeah, I'll have to go up there again and see if anybody else is just wanting to talk or or in need of assistance. Right, Enoch says landlords want proof of income and he couldn't get a national insurance number to find work. That's well, a lot of it's going to be online, so like they're doing away with a lot of the paper trail, like birth certificates and stuff. But that they're doing these visas and then they're not giving them national insurance numbers, and yet there are Romanians that have got that are working as painter and decorators, because that was in a dentist job that I was in town. There was just a full team of Romanians and me, and Polish and all sorts of nationalities. So they're letting in all these other people, but the Hong Kong population is struggling to find to be accepted from the government, let alone like all these accusations of what the public might think. With his money having run, he says, I packed everything 2 or 3 days and came over, full of hope I could rebuild everything here. The reality is devastating. That's because they sold you like that everything was before 2020. He says, to be frank, I had a jolly good life, but I made a decision to come over here because I felt I would potentially get persecuted. To be frank, I had a jolly good life, but I made a decision to come here because I felt I would potentially get persecuted. Yes, that's right. Now, Enoch says he feels betrayed by the British government because he says he cannot afford to apply for a visa. You got to afford it, or the healthcare costs associated with it. But we have the NHS. Apparently, because healthcare costs, like, what's going on? Condemning it as a scheme for the well-off, he says. I can see the future. I can't see the future. Every day I'm struggling. Where am I going to sleep? Where will I be tomorrow? I've lost hope. Home Office told us those on the BNO route can apply for a change of condition to have their no recourse to public funds conditions lifted in the event they become destitute. A spokeswoman said the NBO route is an unprecedented and generous offer reflecting the UK's historic and moral commitment to the people of Hong Kong who choose to retain their ties to the UK by taking the BNO status at the point of Hong Kong handover to China in 1997. The route offers long-term safety and stability for BNO status holders and their families, enabling them to come to the UK to live, study, and work in virtually any capacity on a pathway to citizenship. We gotta work in virtually any capacity on a pathway to citizenship. So they're not even citizens if they've not been accepted by the government. Like, it's just a visa, temporary. I don't know. The cost of the visa the cost of the visa has been set lower than many other visa routes to the UK. The UK has offered a new life to those who were born before Britain handed back control of Hong Kong in 1997, and the government has said it estimates around 3,500 Hong Kongers will come in the next 5 years. So again, the government's going like, yeah, like, I just believe the figures will be higher, and parameters of the scheme need to be looked at. Some believe the scheme fails to make any consideration many younger activists who were born before 1997. Member of the government's Hong Kong task force. He tells Sky News, all Hong Kongers that I've met in the UK are really grateful for the UK government's hospitality through the BNO route. Is that woman again? She was in like a photo up there, and she's here again. But I personally concerned there are some people who need to come out of Hong Kong who don't qualify for the BNO route. Yeah, like that don't make no sense. It's like they're allowing in 1997, so it's not that old. It's like less of the young being allowed in, but still like men of fighting age. That's a lot of people of fighting age. I am personally concerned there are some people who need to come out of Hong Kong. And I want to make sure we are equally hospitable to those people. That's based on need rather than
geniality or financial status.
Genility. Is that, yeah, that's to do with genetics, right? Why are they dropping genetics and if you know, Sky News, like genility and obviously the
He
financial.
also believes the numbers who will eventually come, even amongst those currently allowed, will be higher than forecast, saying it will eventually turn out to be the biggest planned migration to the UK from outside Europe since Windrush.
And all we're seeing on like the only migrants that we're hearing about are the Muslims that are upset with what's going on with Israel and Gaza. And like they're getting so bent out of shape that they've now banned Islamic preachers in this country, which is what they should have done a long time ago. But only now, when it's like
He also believes the numbers who will eventually come, even amongst those currently allowed, will be higher than forecast, saying it will eventually turn out to be the biggest planned migration to the UK from outside Europe since Windrush. He says, the Home Office estimates 150,000 Hong Kongers will come this year alone. Speaking to a friend in Hong Kong, schools are closing down because...
And the racial tensions that we had during those times, because they weren't hiring the black people, they were so they protested and fought against the system. They boycotted the buses. Yeah, it got ugly. You had the skinheads and you had like fights going on in town and stuff. But the Windrush community were a lot more respectable then than they are now. Like, obviously, like it breaks down and like and they kind of spread out. But you wouldn't find a black prostitute, no way, not back then.
So many children have moved. I think this is just wave one. These are the early adopters. These are people with money and a bit more social agility and capacity to move quickly, whilst others will have...
Yeah. This is the pride of China and how great they are. And like, don't get me wrong, I reckon a lot of hardworking Chinese probably turn this place around because of what they've had driven into them with their 12-hour, 6-day-a-week shifts.
To wrap up businesses, sell houses and make plans for elderly relatives, and that takes some time. So wave 2 I think is coming soon, and a lot will depend on how wave 1 get on. The door is open now. The BNO route is in action and I don't think there's a statute of limitations on it. He also shares concerns about the social impact of so many people arriving over a relatively short period of time if the scheme is not properly managed.
Short period of time if the scheme is not properly managed. He says, I think there's great potential for this migration to go really well because many people recognize the incredible skills and abilities that the people of Hong Kong have and how much richer and more vibrant our culture can be because they're here. I think there will also be a minority of people that will have maybe more of a negative perspective on this migration, and that's why it's important that civil society steps up and offers a really warm welcome. Or maybe you should tell us about it. We got to hear it through articles and Sky News and look for ourselves 3 years after the fact, where it's unregulated and as many people can come in. Oh yeah, we're just please wipe your feet.
I think it's vital we get this right. At the very beginning of the BNO route opening up, it coincided with a spike in race-based hate crime against people of Southeast Asian appearance, but it worked out in some really horrible incidences against people of Chinese appearance in the UK. We know when we get it wrong, it leads to all sorts of terrible consequences, but
We've got working visas. And then there's other migrants that already have those working visas and making full use of it. But then and then also going back to the country that they came from. It's literally this place has just become a stepping stone. Which is like come go and get some money and go somewhere else.
But it's not entirely about easing the concerns of local people over the distribution of resources. There's an added layer of complexity, which involves Hong Kong-Chinese relations. In North London we met Jabez Lam from Hackney Chinese Community Services, who was holding an afternoon tea party for all new arrivals in the area, including Hong Kongers. He revealed concerns that some traditional Chinese groups and businesses in the UK, who are loyal to the communist government in Beijing, may not be as welcoming, he claimed. Through these organizations, the Chinese government are exerting their influence to try to make a hostile environment to put off Hong Kongers. There have been online messages through WhatsApp and Facebook and social media calling for people not to employ Hong Kongers and not to do business with Hong Kongers. These are the kinds of direct interference that the Chinese government are able to influence in this country. It's a huge melting pot of issues born out of Britain's promise to stand by the citizens of its colonial past who look to Britain, not China, for their future.
Yeah, they're looking to Britain for the future, not China. But in yet, they've allowed the Communist Party in, as well as the Hong Kongers. And I'm sure we're gonna have some like Chinese police stations, secret police stations down here to put the people in check. And they really need to sort out the language barriers, because otherwise it's just going to be hidden wars. People are not going to really hear about it because they're only going to be able to see the persecution and not really understand unless they learn Chinese. And vice versa. Wow. So yeah. Okay, Bristol and Exeter universities charters flights to bring in high-paying Chinese students. Also, sorry, I kind of just glazed over that one. It's like Bristol and Exeter universities chartering flights. Bosses at West Country universities are chartering flights to bring Chinese students into the country amid concerns about the Delta variant continuing to make travel difficult. It's a bit silly, like and that's probably why they didn't want the outbreak of the coronavirus, because it happened in Wuhan or in China, so they didn't want that information to be like confirmed whilst they had all these students that were like trying to travel over here to become university students, because then there'd be that whole hysteria of, oh, stay away, you got the virus, you like some people knew where it originated from, came from a lab, but they're also trying to say that, oh no, it didn't, it's from bats, it's from a number of top universities are worried about losing millions of pounds in tuition fees that they're making travel arrangements for overseas students who are struggling to get here, according to a report by the Times. The report says there are more than 50 universities involved in the scheme to help 220,000 Chinese students studying in the UK, as they provide nearly a fifth of all tuition fee income. And there's Einstein University that did tuition free for all their students. And then this country just wants to make money off of the students, or direct commercial flights to the UK from mainland China has been stopped, meaning the students would have to travel via Hong Kong, which is one of UK's green list for travel. Bristol and Exeter have already chartered 4 flights in conjunction with Imperial College London, bringing in around 1,200 students. Sources say the universities also have to arrange airport transfer from Heathrow, accommodation, which they don't even have. Yeah, great. Airports are all running again and we'll get flights going, but the accommodation, you barely got accommodation for the students but then you did kill a lot of them. Food for the students who would quarantine for 10 days at their chosen universities. You just can't make it up. Quarantine for a flu. Like, it has raised questions about how much effort the universities are putting into helping students from abroad because of the fees that they generate. Yeah, they just want you as a slave to them. To be paying increments, there's microtransactions. A spokesperson for the University of Bristol said universities across the country have been working together to help our new and returning overseas students safely travel to the UK for their studies. That made me think of something just then. It's basically something I was brought up earlier, and that was going back to, well, we've already learned, we've already got a far better education than what you had to offer, but then it's not being recognized. So it's not being recognized. That's just another way for them to give you another bill. Times on it. I think I lost the article. Oh, here we go. Spokesperson for the university said the universities across the countries have been working together to help our new and returning overseas students safely travel to the UK for their studies. Especially, we are part of the consortium of universities which have been granted permission to charter flights from a small number of Chinese students. Small number, just a couple 100,000. We will be supporting them to quarantine upon arrival in line with government guidelines. Nothing to do with health and like they want to put it down to government when it's like the WHO, the WEF. I'm gonna wrap this up. We're gonna finish this shortly. Student university numbers. So 65% of all graduate students are from outside the UK, and are 23% of all undergraduates. UK 9,773, non-EU 1,881, and then graduates from the UK 4,638 from the UK, non-EU 6,018. But yeah, I was going to go more back onto the strikes, how much of an impact they've been having on the economy. Whilst we're being like over flooded with people, whilst we can barely, take care of our own. Yeah, it's just stressing the system as much as they can from different angles, and it's just causing mental health crises, and they got a conference coming up in June 12th to June 13th in Manchester Central. It's called the NHS Confed Expo 2024. Confed. CONFEDEXPO. I guess that'll be after the general election. I'm not sure.